going to hold shift. I'm going to the 0 key while holding shift to put a parenthesis there. Then I'm going to go to the other side of building, hold shift, and then put a parenthesis there. And then with this done, I'm then going to click OK. Okay, if we want to modify an action, we can double click. And we'll go back into that action's settings. I'm going to click OK. We can also click on some of the elements of the action out in our main work area here. So I'm going to click on building right here. And what we need to do is, this is important, after the parentheses, you need a space. We're going to hold shift and press equal to get a plus, a space, and I'm going to press 100. So now we have do equals building y, dot y, parenthesis, space, plus space 100 to the order of building. Okay, when we look back, we have two buildings here. So we want to have our Z depth work for each of our buildings. So what I'm going to do is click here. It's important that when I clicked here, I didn't click on this gray. See how when I click the gray here, we have this blue outline around the gray. I clicked here so the blue outline is here. This is important for setting up sub-events and things like that. So with things clicked onto the blue line is all along here like you see it. I'm going to go to this plus button here where it says when I hover over it, choose and add an event. I'm going to left click there, and then I'm going to select for each object. And now we have another condition. However, I want this to be a sub-condition of, at the beginning of the scene, the condition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on this blue, and I'm just going to drag this over. And now you can see there's a line coming down, like this is indented. So this is a sub-condition of this condition here. And sub-conditions depend on the conditions to work. And they're useful for when you want something to be connected to the initial condition at the beginning of the scene. You just can make a sub-condition. Okay, so with that sub-condition, actually what we want to have is to have this code be on this action here. So what we can do very easily is I can right click, select cut, and then right click again and then paste. And now I just moved this code down into this sub-condition. Now with this sub-condition, see where it says click to choose which objects this event will be repeated. I'm going to left click here. I'm going to click here, and I want this to go on our building. So I'm just going to press the B key. And when I did that, now we see building. I'm going to left click and then just click away. So now this is going to be repeated for each building. And when I say this, I mean this at the beginning of the scene. So we're saying at the beginning of the scene, we want something to happen. And what we're telling is we want this code for the Z order to be set up at the beginning of each scene. Okay, what we want to do now is set up the code for the player. So this will make things, this is the settings we need for the building. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click back up here. So we have this blue outline going right along on this condition here. And the reason why we're doing that is we want a new condition. So we're going to click here, and now we have a new condition here. We want to click add condition. We want to go to keyboard, and then what we want to do is select any key pressed. These other settings are fine. We're going to click OK. And then for the add action, what we can actually do is take this code here and copy this to here. So I'm going to left click here to select this code. I'm then going to right click, and then we can see these options. I'm going to select copy. I'm going to hover right over this add action. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to select paste. So now we have a copy of that code right here. Okay, the reason why we copied this code was just to make things faster. However, this code is supposed to be for the player, so we need to change from right here we see building as well as here to player. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to change this to player. Then I'm going to click on this building here. I'm going to change this to player as well. Now, the reason why we put in player is just because that's what I named our player character. If you would name the player character something else, you will put that name in. So there is something else we need to change. For our building, we want our code to say plus 100. For our player, we want this to actually say -10. So we're going to click here. And it's important that when you put this in, you want to have after the parentheses space minus space 10. Okay, so if everything's working correctly, when we move our player should be in front of the building and then gradually go behind the building as we move up. So I'm going to click the preview button here. I'm going to use our player, our arrow keys go up, and you can see the player's in front of the building now. And then eventually he goes to the back of the building. The issue is, though, is that it takes him too long to go to the back. A Labrador in the background dreaming, if you hear sounds over there. But yeah, we want to change that so it works how we want it to work. So I'm going to click here. Okay, so I'm going to go to new scene, back to new scene. Now, when I click on the player, what we're working with is this Z order here. Currently, our player is on number 1. I'm going to change this so he's on Z order 2. I'm going to set the buildings need to be on a higher Z order than him. So I'm going to change them to 4. Or change the 1 to 4 and the other one will be the same. And basically, the way things work as far as the Z order is the higher that you are up, like as far as or lower you're up, like number 1, you would be all the way in the background. Number 2, you would be in the background as far as the Z order. So because this player character is number 2 and these buildings are number 4, the player character would normally be behind these buildings. And the code that we set up makes this Z order change. All right, the reason why I'm telling you that is we want to have things set up so that our player will go to about here, be visible to about here. Then when he moves up, basically move behind the building. So how do we set that up? We're going to click on our building here, and we can see the height is 344 pixels. So what we can do is we're going to go over to this objects panel. We're going to click this plus button. We're going to click sprite to bring in a new sprite. I'm going to name this block for something we're going to do with this later on. I'm going to click this plus button. Now, normally what I did previously in this tutorial was I click plus, then I click plus to the left. This time I'm going to select Edit with Piskel, and this opens up a graph editor that is inside of Gdevelop. Very nice. And you can actually make graphics to work with Gdevelop in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this color here, make this a blue color. I'm going to go to this paint bucket, fill this area here, and I'm going to name this block. I'm then going to click Save to Gdevelop. I'm then going to click Apply. Okay, so now with this, I'm going to click on this block. I'm then going to left click and drag this out. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to pan my view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to the top, almost the top of the building, this block graphic. And I'm going to pull down to about where I want this character to disappear, which is about right here. And we can see that the height of this block is 222. So what I'm going to do, knowing that this is 222, and this is, see how I have this lined up right with here? So what I'm going to do is go to New Scene and Events, and then for this 100, I'm going to change this to round things off to 220. And I'm putting in that 220 because this is 222. So I'm basically using this as a measuring, going from around the top to near where I want the character's Z depth to change so it goes behind the building. So let's see if this works. So I'm going to press the preview button. So now we have our character go over, pressing the arrow keys, go up, and then you can see our character disappeared